Let's see what the other coaches have to say about that because I'm not programming in Spike all the time. I don't know. Have any of the coaches heard if the Spike Prime software was updated this past week? This was last year. Do not upgrade. People were upgrading right before the qualifier, and I remember there were some teams that they had some problems. Here's my coach advice. If your robot is performing and it's doing what you want it to do, and you're not having, sort of serious errors with it or anything like that, my recommendation would be don't mess with it this close to a qualifier. And Rich is nodding his head. If there's nothing that's sort of motivating you, causing you the stress, yeah, I would say don't do anything. Okay, so we're at about 7:04. I'll keep an eye on the audience here, but basically I was getting a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails from people just wanting to know what a qualifier looks like. And so okay, so Sarah did hear that. So this doesn't show up on the recording, so I'll just repeat what Sarah just put in here, that yes, her expert, that one of the ones in the background right there, yes, the expert in Tucson, right? Close to Tucson? Close to Tucson, is saying that yes, the software was updated this week. So be aware of that. You make your own decision if you want to update or not. But it would be perfectly acceptable to do it after the qualifier. Okay, so on this call, you guys, we have like in an hour between all of us, you should have every single answer to every single question there exists about any qualifier ever. So Rick Kale on here is our state tournament state championship tournament director. He also does some of the qualifiers. So some of the qualifiers that you guys go to, you may see him popping in over there. And Nancy Okabe, wave Nancy. Nancy's our it's called judge advisor in FLL. It's basically the head judge for the state of Arizona. So anything to do with judging, she trains all the judges, like new rubrics and all that stuff, right? Nancy will be there to answer that. We have Rich Gomez coming. You in Flagstaff right now? He travels.
I am. Yes.
Flagstaff. We're coming at you from all corners here. And Rich is the head referee for the state of Arizona. And not only is he the head referee for FLL, in his spare time, when he doesn't have FLL to do, he'll be the head referee for FTC and the head referee for FRC. So the zebra, he's very, very familiar with the zebra stripes of every possible robotics version that you can think of. And then we have several coaches that are on here. I am recording this session and I plan on just very, very quickly uploading it to YouTube today so that other people who can't be here can watch this if they have questions about what's in a qualifier. So between all of us, we should be able to answer any specific question that you have, as well as walking you through sort of the general, what happens generally at a qualifier. So I will start by saying that I myself am what's called the partner for FLL for the state of Arizona, and I help. I hate the word organize. I support the real people who do the real work of these qualifiers, which is who are the tournament directors and the volunteer coordinators. And then from that, we get a judge advisor for every event and a head referee for every event. And then that gets into referees and that gets into judges and cuers and timers and what else, Rick? Volunteer room coordinator and all that stuff, right? all I do is figure out, get some volunteer t-shirts, referee t-shirts, trophies, medals, tables, field sets that go on the table, right? That they get built and all that. And we just coordinate all of that. That's just flying all across the state of Arizona. Starting now, I had my first scrimmage that I was at over the weekend. And it just keeps going all the way to the state tournament on January 18th. So one of the questions that I get from coaches is, what time do we start? What time do we end? And I have no answer for that. I have no answer because every event is run differently at a different location, and every location will run their event however they want. Because we've got Rick on here. Off the top of your head, Rick, your pick one.
Usually I start my events 7:30.
7:30 check in, you show up. Okay.
Teams can start showing up 7:30. I usually give about an hour, and then we'll sometimes do opening ceremony. Otherwise, just get right into the day. And then
Coaches
depends on
meeting.
how. Hmm?
Coaches meeting.
Oh yeah. Coaches meeting where I try to send you emails ahead of time with all the information that you need, but then I have a usually 15, 20 minutes or so at the beginning of the day where I just kind of brief all the coaches with the schedule for the day, where on site the different events are going to be occurring, any other questions they might have, any information from the judge advisor or the head referee, um, to tell the teams what to expect for the day and to look out for. And then we get on into the main events, and then after everything's wrapped up, we're usually done by 5 o'clock. I don't think I've had many go longer than that, but it all depends on how the tournament director has the event set up, how many teams are there. There's multiple factors, but I would say that's
How many
probably.
fire alarms Rick decides to schedule into the meeting? We're all laughing because we've got a string of them going now.
Yeah.
But these things do happen, so that when something like that happens, then you know, event organizers, we're just scrambling to figure out how do we get everyone back on schedule. So
Yeah.
we sent out an email today to the tournament directors, telling them that for what we call week one, which is December 7th, we have 6 events on that day throughout the state, that we want to see the tournament directors starting to send you some information about approximately when they're going to start, when they think they're going to end, so that those of you that are either talking directly with parents who will be bringing students over, or in some cases you're having to reserve a bus, we want to get you that sort of general information. Any questions about that? We'll get into the specifics of the schedule. I'll let Nancy talk about judging. I'll let Rich talk about what happens at the competition table, but sort of generally about the day. What questions do you have that we can answer at this point? We're good?
Is the day completely full? Are there like giant pockets of time of downtime, or
That
what
one.
does that look like?
There are pockets of time. So let's get into the schedule. So every tournament director, so all of our qualifiers generally in Arizona, there's no rule for this. It just tends to be how things happen in Arizona, is that the qualifiers are on Saturday. And I will tell you that people are joining the qualifiers or dropping out of a qualifier till the very last minute. So as a tournament director, putting the work in to build a specific schedule for the teams is a lot of work. And those of us who like to do this way ahead of time, we're having to redo schedules, and it's just not fun. So generally speaking, again, every event is different, but generally speaking, the Thursday before the event, we're going to start freezing who is going at that event so that the tournament director can generate the schedule. You then, as a coach, will get a schedule, and that schedule will have sort of general things on there when we start, opening ceremonies, coaches meetings, things that are for every single team. But then you, as a coach, will get times that are specific to you. So you will get, at a minimum, you will get one time where you will show up at a judging session. And I will let Nancy talk a little bit about what goes on during the judging session, but you'll be given a time where your team shows up for judging, and you'll be given, at a minimum, 3 official robot matches where you show up with your robot at the competition table. Most of the qualifiers, and now we're really trying to also do it at the state, will give you an additional practice robot round. So on top of all the general things, you will have, I hope, having coached, I'm a big supporter of a practice robot round that does not count, but it trains everybody. It trains you, it trains the students, it trains the referees, it trains, the flow of the room, and it it gives Rich, as the head ref, the opportunity to make sure his flow is going well. But on top of that, there's the MC, there's the scorekeepers, there's the music, there's the sound, there's a lot going on there. So a practice round is so good. And then you'll have your 3 official rounds on top of that. Then we have a closing ceremonies and the medals and the trophies and all that, which is a lot. But you will have time in between all of this stuff. You will have time for some downtime, snacks, food. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Katie?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
I would add that downtime you'll have. So if you do a robot run and it didn't perform like you wanted it to, you should have some time to make like minor tweaks, but make sure that you're prepared coming. You're not going to have time to completely like build a whole new program. Well, I guess it depends on your expertise, but I wouldn't recommend coming and being like, I need to finish something. Like be ready when you get there. You might be able to tweak things if you find it's not actually working on the competition table, but
and there will be practice tables there, individual 8x4 tables with a mat with all the mission models on there. Understand, at qualifiers, they are generally unmanned. It is generally based on gracious professionalism. A team walks up, uses the table 5-6 minutes or so, and if there's someone waiting, we'll then move away and let someone else have a turn at it. Now, because team after team after team is going, there's no official resetting. This isn't table resetting under Rich's leadership in the competition area. This is just everybody putting things back. So we've made that mistake as a team in the past, where we changed programs at the competition based on the practice table, and we regretted it. So, and Rich is nodding again. So if you make changes, make absolutely sure that you are confident in the change, because those practice tables could lead you astray because there's no one monitoring whether or not they're being reset properly. But you will have the opportunity to do some tweaking if you want to. Okay, who wants to go first? Nancy or Rich? Who wants to? I think I'm gonna let Nancy go first, if that's okay. And what I plan on doing, I'm gonna make sure that everybody can share. And then what I want to do is step on the recording. I want to step through anything that comes up in the discussion to show you how to get this information that we're going to talk about, so that you can do it on your own afterwards, and you're not relying on potentially out of date things that you're storing on a computer. I would rather you know where to go very quickly and easily online to get access to documents. Nancy, would you like the flow chart up first?
Sure, why don't we do that? Yeah, I
Let's
don't have
do that.
anything up, so if you could
Okay,
do that, would be great.
let's do that first, and then I'm going to hand it over to Nancy. So I'm going to share. I'm going to share screen one, and you should see my Spike Prime update that I was looking at. So what I did is see all this chat stuff. Do you? I'll move it over just in case. Okay, all right. So firstinspires.org is, if you know nothing else after this call, you need to know this website, firstinspires.org. And you can log in if you want to, but to get this information, you do not need to log in. You click on programs, First Lego League, sort of hover, move on over, and you can go. There's a couple of different places you can go for this particular piece of information. You could go to Game and Season, which will take you straight to Submerged. I'll take you to the resource library, and the reason is because I think that the resource library is a really good front door into really, really useful information. So there's a resource library, and this resource library can be applied to any of the, can you see my screen? You can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you can apply to any of the programs. So in our case, we're going to click on First Lego League Challenge. And so now it has filtered down a little bit. And in this, you can do a search on here if you want to. You may not know that we're looking for the flow chart, but let's do a search and see if it finds it for us. Okay, and this is a really important group of documents. It's called Challenge, Updates, and Resources. So I'm going to click on that because our flow chart is in here somewhere. So if you go down, you'll see a section called Judging and Scoring Materials. And we're going to start with the flow chart right here. And as Nancy starts talking, we may be adding some other documents. But here is the flow chart. Can you see that? Let me get it. You should be able to see the whole thing. And I'm handing it over to Nancy.
Okay, so if you're a new coach, this will be brand new for everyone. We are making a few changes if you were a coach from last year, so it's a little bit different. It is a 30-minute session. So remember, when you first come into the tournament, they will give you a sheet of paper that will tell you your robot performance game times, but it will also give you your judging time. So that's important to remember what your judging room is and the time that you're supposed to be there, and make sure that you're there prior to your interview time so that you're all set to go. So once you get to the room and your time is there, the judges will welcome you into the room. The team will come in. If they have a song or a skit, they can do that as they come into the rooms. We have some teams that do that. Otherwise, they can just come in and do their setup. One of the things to keep in mind is that project will be first, and your setup of your project is included in your time. So you really need to make sure that if you're going to bring in materials, it should be easy setup for the kids, right? It can't be something that's going to take a lot of time because that's going to eat into their interview time. The other thing is when they set up, they have to set up. You can't set up the materials for them. So this is all about the kids doing the work. So once they come in, the judges will introduce themselves, and they will go through the flow chart. They'll just say, hey, this is what the flow chart looks like. This is how your time will be divided into the different sections, just to remind them. But please show this to your team so that they're prepared when they go in. Otherwise, I don't want them to be surprised. The judges will try and put them at ease because I know they're going to be nervous. So that should be helpful. 10-minute intervals. So for project, they will have 5 minutes for their presentation. So they should have a prepared presentation, 5 minutes for Q&A. Now, what I always tell my judges, if they go a little bit beyond 5 minutes, that's okay. However, it eats into the Q&A section. So they have 10 minutes for innovation project, okay? The Q&A is important because if there is some information that the team didn't provide to the judges, we need time for the judges to ask questions so that they can solicit the information that they need in order to score them on the rubrics. So that piece of time is really important. Then we will go into the robot design. Now, robot design, they don't necessarily have to have a presentation. If they don't have a presentation, the judges can take the full 10 minutes and ask them questions. However, I would recommend that they have some type of presentation or some type of, doesn't have to be documentation as much as they can describe their robot's journey in terms of how they built the robot, what attachments they put together. As long as they can go through the rubric and answer all of those questions, that's really what we're looking for, right? We're not necessarily looking for a formal presentation, but it's important to answer all the questions on the rubric. So make sure that you review the rubrics with your teams. They should be able to present data in that order to the judges. That's the easiest way for them to handle that process. Those are the two areas that they're going to be judged on, right? So there won't be a core values presentation. A lot of other teams have put together core values presentations in the past. That's really not necessary this year because of the changes in how we're judging. If they do put together a presentation at the end of the robot judging session, the judges will ask questions and they will ask you, is there anything else that your team wants to share with us? So if they by chance had something for core values, they can definitely talk to the judges about it at that time, but it's not a lot of time. At the end of the interview session, the judges will give them feedback. They'll let them know, these are the things that you did great on. These are some of the suggestions that we would have you consider in order to improve your project, improve your robot, improve your presentation. So it's the judge's way of coaching your team in terms of what are some of the things that they can do better. And then we will ask the team to leave, and then we will start the judging process, the rating process with the judges in the room. Any questions on that piece? Okay. Can we pull up a rubric? Just one of the rubrics would be fine.
Yeah.
Elaine.
How do I get rid of my annotate stuff? I don't know how to do that. My circles are there. Oh, interesting. Oh, well. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Control.
Nope, so I was just going to say, if you pull down the rubrics, make sure you do pull them out down for this season because it's been revised from previous seasons. So please use the newest version just so that you, let's see if we can pull one up.
Okay.
When you're looking at the rubrics, the way the rubric is set up this year, it's a combination rubric. So on the project rubric and on the robot rubric, they do have some of the lines that are dual, meaning that they will apply points for a robot and for core values.
So
on the project rubric, the same thing.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so I'm still in the resource library. I'm still under challenge updates and resources. I don't know if you guys can see those circles, but they're from the previous slide. And then again, under judging and scoring, under rubrics, you can get a gray version and a color version. Typically, you would use a color vision from a coach perspective. We use gray sometimes to know what an official rubric is and what is one that we're just scratching on it. But if you click on color, it will open up a 3-page document, which is exactly what Nancy is describing. And this is very different, not very, it is different from last year. So if you're an experienced coach and you think your rubric is going to look the same as it did during Masterpiece, that is not the case. You need to go download the rubric. So which page, you okay with this page, Nancy?
So this is going to be the feedback page. So we give you feedback verbally in the session, but we also give you written feedback. So if you go to one of the rubrics here, just as a example, you can see like line 2, you can see that the circles, and they have a little like flower arrangement around it. Those are the ones that actually score for both core values and, in this case, innovation project. So that you can see that we are gathering core values information from their innovation project presentation and their robot conversation. And then we're also receiving core values information from volunteers in the tournament, but also from our referees.
That's
Any
innovation project.
questions?
Here's robot, same thing.
No questions? All right. I want to give Rich a chance to talk about.
Give Rich a chance. Okay, so this rubric, each coach should get these 3 pages filled out either online. We have an online tool that your event may or may not use. If it uses that, you may end up getting your filled out rubrics electronically. If it is a paper event, you will get a piece of paper. Typically, we hand that out at the very, very, very end. So don't walk away without your rubrics if that's something that's important to you. Okay, so that's rubrics. All right. I will stop sharing. We'll get Rich on here and see if there's anything you want me to bring
I
up.
think in a couple of minutes, we'll just go ahead and call it the challenge updates. And then, or I can, if you want to share, allow me to share my screen. I
You
can
should
pop
be
in
able
some
to
stuff.
share.
Okay.
I did turn it on, so go
Okay.
ahead.
Cool. So I'll start off with just a couple of general remarks. And although the field game is a lot of fun and a lot of activity and a lot of stress for some teams, and especially the robots do get nervous, probably more so than the future leaders that we're grooming. But in perspective, just remember it's less than a third of the overall award of the day. So if you've got members of your team that are really getting keyed up about the robot performance on the field and the missions, and they just can't get a mission to work, and I see that happen all the time. Just kind of have them take a step back, take a deep breath, and remember that the innovation project, their presentation on robot design, the core values, all of those are weighted into how they perform overall in the competition. And the other key point is it's not how well they do, but how much they've learned and grown during the season. And so the tournaments are the celebration, and I like to do that with all my referees, is really kind of play into that. It's a celebration of what you can do. You know, if you've got a rookie team that can only do 1 or 2 missions, hey, that's great. That's fantastic. You know, and I encourage my referees to really celebrate that success with the teams. And the interaction with the referees becomes very critical from that practice round. I love the practice rounds because, like Elaine said, that's when we get to train our referees and make sure that we're all on the same sheet. But more specifically, it gets us a first look at what the teams are doing, how they're performing, where the nerves are, you know, where we think we can see some growth. We can also give them a little bit of feedback right there at the practice field or the practice match when they do that. And they can also see what some of the other teams are coming up with. And so doing some minor tweaks, like Rick said, I wouldn't recommend fully changing out programs and all that. But I've seen tournaments where teams come back at the second and third matches, and they've made some improvements on both the robot and the programming that allows them to be successful in the missions they set out to be initially in that practice round that they were struggling with, or even add on a second or third mission, you know, as the day goes on. So there's a lot of growth, a lot of celebration in the day. So that's probably the biggest thing that I like to promote. Of course, we've got the rules to follow and the gameplay book and all that, which is very, very important. But that interaction with the referees and the men and women on the team are very critical. So coming into a match, probably the biggest thing is you want to be up to speed on the challenge updates. And so let's try and share my screen here and see what happens. And am I sharing my screen? Okay, so you've got, actually, this is not the challenge updates. This is another important one, but the challenge updates. If you haven't seen these already, make sure you go on into that resource library that Elaine was talking about. And right here is the resource library page. And scroll down to that challenge updates and clarifications. It'll pop up. The last one was October 1st. And at this point in the season, I don't anticipate any new updates coming along. We might have a few. Who knows? But right now, the big clarifications are out there. So make sure you go through that with the team, and the team understands that. This update number 9, I'm surprised it took that long for them to make this update with the mast. And the mast is basically, the scoring position is it's almost upright, resting on the latch. So that in the model, you know, there was you can actually over rotate the mast, so it's falling the other direction. And so this clarification just emphasizes that mast needs to be almost vertically erect, as the photo is shown there, and resting on its latch. And that's going to be the scoring conditions there. So that's pretty big. The other updates, the just placement of where the krill and the reef segments are. I'm going to highlight on the reef segments here is those reef segments start on the field. They're on the field. You've got the little circles where those coral coral pieces that kind of rest on that cone, and they're very tipsy-turvy. Those are really obstacles for the team to work around, work around, avoid. Don't want to do damage to the coral because of the scoring conditions of there. But those start on the field. And I know a couple of scrimmages that I've been a part of, or some of the coaches that I've talked to, they got a little bit confused and thought those coral pieces start at home and need to be delivered to those circles. No, those coral pieces start there on the field. And so that's on automatic 15 points if the team does absolutely nothing to the board other than bring the robot and bring the team members to the table. You got your 60 points for the precision tokens and 15 points automatically for that coral. So that's a big kind of clarification that I want to put out. And then there are other odds and ends about the various updates and the rule book and all of that. So I'll let you attack that at your leisure. Another big change this year from previous years is we've got the field setup guide. And that's it's an actual video that is again on the resources page. And that is down here in the videos. You've got your, oh, no.
It's up.
Did I miss it?
It says new under building instructions, field
That's
setup.
right.
Yep.
That's right. There
Yep.
it is right there.
Yep.
You're in the building. So another key document that all teams should be looking at on a regular basis, and you can, fast forward to the missions that the team wants to do, but having your game map set up properly, no matter what missions you're going to run, is very important. Especially at this stage, you're probably getting to the point where you may be running practice matches at your team meetings and all that. And so having all the pieces there on the mat, anchored down properly, placed properly, is very key to how the sequence of your missions can fold out. Because you might be doing one activity and you've got a model that'll interfere with it if you don't have that model up. And I've seen that happen before as well. The other thing I want to point out on the slideshow here with the field setup is you've got the red lines that point to various or highlight various aspects of the mission model. And this coral nursery is a classic key and point where you've got the placement of the tree tucked into the base for the proper setup. And that's what the notes go to. And then you've got this line here that should be lining up with the top of the tree. As you notice in the notes, it doesn't matter which way this circle is facing. So if the team wants to face it the opposite of what it's shown here, so the circle kind of opening up toward the home section, that's completely up to the team. As a referee team, we're not going to set it any specific way. The field resetters are going to reset it. It's going to lay however they set it in that little base. and put it down on the field. If the team wants to change the adjustment of that, that's the team's prerogative to do so. And I encourage the team to let the referee know, hey, we want to adjust the tree and make sure that the loop is pointing in the right direction. The team should have free reign to do that. The other key point is you'll see the arrows with the lines, pointing out the black lines. Those are orientation lines for where the field is set up. So in this case, the yellow bar should be sitting over that small line that's on the field mat. And there are a couple of others. Here it shows the coral. Here it shows the placement of the coral on the model itself. Another one key line is, again, where the yellow bar lines up with the line on the bottom on the field mat. So those are just kind of guidelines to help you make sure your mats are set up properly. So I encourage everyone to look at that slide deck and make sure you understand all of that going into the matches. And typically I think every year I have seen at least one or two teams that come up to the table and start running the match and start freaking out going, but that's not the way our mat was set up at home. That's not how we practice. What's going on? Is the mat set up correctly? Yes, the mat is set up correctly. We take great pride in getting it as precise as we can. Remember, there is some variation in all of that. And so it's worthwhile to have a discussion with the team about variation. So once you get to the tournament, what's going to happen? We talked about the practice matches. You'll have time for that. You'll have a time for your judging session and time for all your 3 qualifying matches. Remember, and this is another one big for the team, is you've got the 3 matches, but the best of those 3 is the score that carries forward. So you can fail miserably on match 1 and 2 and come back match number 3 and wipe out all the missions and have a hugely successful run by scoring all those missions perfectly. That's the score that's going to count. It's not going to be an average of 0, 10, and 550,000. It's just going to be that 550,000. Actually, I don't think there are that many points available this year, but you can count them up yourself. Typically, we see in the high teens, like the 90s, 80s, 90s, up into the 150, 160. The really high-scoring teams may start approaching 200 during states. During the qualifiers, they'll probably be in the hundreds. So that's it.
Do you want to bring up the score sheet?
We can, sure. So let's.
I want to show them what the score sheet looks like, so they know what the students will be reviewing.
Score sheet.
I think that's it.
We've got there are a couple of in the score sheets. You've got let's call this one. Let's see. There are some automated ones. Here we go. These are what we're going to be using, or the electronic equivalent for some of the matches. We may have electronic scoring capability, but the score sheet, every match, even the practice match, will be scored on this. And one of the other things that I asked all my referees to do is bring the team around after the match is completed at 5:30. Don't touch any mission models. Don't touch the field how it lies. And then we'll sit down and we'll go through each of the missions, even though you may not do the coral nursery or the shark or the coral reef. I want the referees to be there circling or scoring with the team. And then you get to the ones that score the scuba diver. Yeah, the scuba diver's no longer touching the coral nursery. So we'll circle that, and it's hanging on the coral reef support. Yep, great job. You tried the anglerfish and you just kept missing that lever. Excellent try, team. I know in the future you'll get it. So the encouragement is a key part of what we try and do as referees. But you can go through this the score sheet here with your teams during the practice matches, and again, it's worthwhile that the teams understand the scoring process here. This little icon, the no equipment icon, is a great reminder, and this year I love it because it's easy for us referees to know which models no equipment can be touching that mission model for the score. So that's a key element that, again, we see every year. Really nifty jigs or things that detach from the robot after it places some stuff somewhere on the field. And that equipment that's carrying that mission model to the scoring position may or may not be in contact with that mission model. So it may or may not score, depending on this little icon. All right, so that's another one to really make sure you understand and make sure the teams understand how all that plays out and what the definition of equipment is and what the attachments are and all that. So that's kind of the score sheet. And then the other key part of a match is your gracious professionalism score. Everyone comes into a match with a gracious professional score of accomplished, 3 on the ranking there. They've got to do something really exceptional in either way to be downgraded to developing or to exceeds. We expect the teams to live up to those core values on every one of their missions. We expect them to be cheering on their teammates, making it loud. First is a loud program, and we love to see that. We love the excitement and the enthusiasm. Where you might see some developing issues is if the team starts falling apart. If you have a team member that is totally self-destructing and the team does not rally around them, but actually removes that person from the field physically and says, get out of here. We'll take the mission from here. You don't need to do that. Exchanging language and all that. And I've seen that happen. We don't like to see that happen, but it does happen. What goes into the exceeds is you have that same situation, but now the team is congregating around, hey, Joe Bob, take a step back and take a deep breath and let's re-engage that mission. But while we're doing that, we're going to execute this mission number 3. So then Joe Bob takes a step back and comes back, and the team is cheering him or her on as they start the next mission and recover. That would be an exceeds type of evolution that I'd see. And we see that from time to time as well. So, but by and large, don't expect to see inflation in those numbers here in Arizona. I try and keep it kind of level playing field and truly something exceptional. We're going to have meltdowns. Just because you have a meltdown doesn't mean you're going to go into that developing category. It's all the way the team handles those kind of rigors of gameplay. So that's the grace professionalism. Any questions on anything so far on the updates, the mission videos, or the score sheet and grace professionalism? Not hearing anything. So just a couple of other quick things to point out. When they do come up to the mission, it's going to be the team coaches. You're more than welcome to accompany them. But coaches, I'm going to ask you to step away from the team during the match. We referees want to see what the team is actually doing and having the team make the calls. So referees, when it comes time to the match, your gameplay for the match may be in a secluded area, not really secluded, but in an area outside of the game field perimeter where hopefully you've got good access to get some videos and some photos of your team in action, but far enough away to where you're not prompting them to do certain things. We want the team coaching themselves at this point. We want the coaches to be cheerleaders. Rah, 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 go, go, go. Not, hey, run mission 3 again. Run mission 5. No, you can't run mission 1 yet. Remember that you interfere with another mission you want to run. That kind of stuff doesn't happen. That happens with the youth. We don't want to see coaches doing that. You might see head referees backside if you start making those coaching calls to the team. All that being said in jest, we do want to have a great experience, but like I said, we also want to see the team and how they coach themselves, during the matches. The other aspect that's going to come into play, and we've done it several years now, is when the teams come up to get ready for the match, They're going to put all their equipment down. They're going to put the robot, any attachments, any jigs that they want to use, and do that initial inspection with the referee that's there at the table with them. And that'd be a fairly quick process. And remember that the teams can, if they've got a lot of jigs and a lot of pieces of equipment, they can hold all that stuff in the volume of that one launch area if they're going for the bonus points. And remember the 12-inch ceiling, that goes away after the inspection. But for inspection, they can hold their pile of equipment and robot and attachments and jigs. All that fits in. They get the bonus points. And then at that point, they divide between the two home areas. And we need to see that divide, especially with the larger teams. But even a team of two, one person on each side, manning the home areas for the technician. And then remember, there are only two technicians in each one of the home areas. Everyone else is behind. And usually there's a line that they stand behind. They can rotate in and out on that side of the home that they're starting out with. They can't trade sides during a match, but they can rotate in and out of being a technician or being an observer, getting ready to run a match. The other thing that I like to remind everybody about is if you've got attachments and equipment that, let's say you've got two technicians that are manning the table, two technicians that are getting ready to step up once the two technicians run their mission that they're doing. Those two technicians that are kind of in the batter box, they cannot be holding on the equipment. All the equipment, jigs, anything that they're going to use has to remain there in home at the field with the technicians that are currently active on the field. So that's another key component. We see teams wanting to keep their attachments that they're going to use while they're waiting in the queuing line for their time to go up to the field. So that's a key element that we'll be looking for. And then beyond that, pretty much the rule book lays out everything else that's going on during the match. We're watching for those interrupts. We're watching for the gameplay, and it's quite okay to rerun missions if they've got a mission that they just can't get right on, and they know they've got time in that 2.5 minutes to run the mission. I'll even encourage them. Hey, do you want to run that mission again? I know you've got about a minute left after you run everything possible. Go ahead and try that mission again. Give it a try. Don't give up on it yet. And sometimes that pays off. So anyway, that's kind of the big overview type of stuff. Any questions or Elaine, Rick, Nancy, if you've got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I've got a few more things to close out, but we have 10 minutes. Anything anybody want to ask? Is there a particular thing maybe you're trying to do with your robot and you're wondering if it's a question? Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, I had a question. Is there a way to get that software in order for us to use those like that? Is that on that resource?
Oh,
That the digital one that we can use? No.
Yes. If you go to either the robot game Excel score or the score calculator.
Okay.
The score calculator is an easy one. And it basically it'll go through and just allow you to click along, and it's not going to do anything until you get everything filled out. Okay, so then you fill out everything, and then at the bottom, I think it's the bottom. Oh, here we go. We got to hit the score. Okay, they made a change from last year. Woohoo! You don't have to check every box, which is good and bad. In the past, you had to check every box, or it would give you a invalid score. So that's your score. So you can actually go through and just click on the ones that you accomplish, and then get your score, and then hit start over. It clears it, and you're good to go.
And Sarah, that's the official score. There's often teams that will design their own and put it out so that you can download the app to your phone. No guarantees that those are correct. But this one right here is completely accessible to you through the resource library.
Thank you. I'll just use that one.
Okay, perfect. Anything else? I was going to close out with a few little comments, but any other lingering questions?
I just had a quick question, and I'm so sorry I came in a little late. I was just wondering about the logistics, like food and like what parents are doing kind of in the interim.
Okay.
Um,
So each event will be different, but food is each team's responsibility. You will get some information. You should start seeing some information starting to come your way from your tournament directors, particularly if your event is on December 7th. December 7th is the first day of our qualifiers. And we asked the tournament directors today to start sending out some general information. So you'll get some general information about food. But generally speaking, people will bring snacks, water bottles. What I would do when I was a coach was put a parent in charge of bringing food. Some people call Domino's and have, 2 or 3 pizzas delivered to the event. Somebody does a run to a burger place or to Fry's and picks up some sandwiches and fruit. It can be a variety of things. You should have a time during your schedule. It can be, usually it's at least 30 minutes. I've seen as long as an hour, although an hour is a bit long in my opinion, but you can have as much as an hour for lunch.
Great, thank you. And then just a question kind of on the robot side. So we know our kids we're not gonna be able to finish like all the missions and everything. So does that kind of change the schedule, or it's still you guys still get 3 rounds? Everyone's kind of there the full time and everything. Okay.
And
Yeah.
absolutely fine, Jenny. I'll let Rich talk here, but even I've not at the FLL level, but my kids were at an FTC competition where, I kid you not, the robot didn't move. There was something wrong with the robot. The darn thing didn't move. And they showed up to every match and they put their robot down on the field and they stood there for 2.5 minutes. And there are lovely, lovely awards that can be given out to teams that do that. Bring what you have. Bring your gracious professionalism and do the best you can. There are such great learning opportunities for teams that do that. Just come.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I echo that. And one other thing that I'll say is I've been doing this since 2008. I've never seen a team at any qualifier or state championship do every single mission and accomplish every mission. You do see the worlds, but at the lower levels, the teams are still building, still refining, still doing things. So like I said, a rookie team, if you can get 1 or 2 missions in, that's awesome. For the veteran teams, typically 5, 6, 7 missions are typical.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And the referees at the competition table, since we're talking about the robot, are trained to celebrate no matter what. Judges, as Nancy mentioned, same thing. I've had teams where I'm judging and I sit on the floor. It's just what that team needed, and I just sat on the floor. Whatever it is that I need to do to make those kids feel comfortable. And it is so important for the coaches to step away because it empowers them to know. And if you've been around me when I talk to students, I say this over and over and over and over and over again. It is your judging session. It is your robot match. If you're not happy with how the table is set up, if you want to move something in the judging room, politely ask the referee, politely ask the judge, could we move this over here? Would you mind, as Rich was saying, that's not lined up on the table. We need that to be perfectly lined up, whatever it is, right? But the message is, you are in charge. You are capable. You are an equal at the conversation that we're having here. So it's very important to me. Let's see, Jennifer, our head coaches have not invited us to register, so we haven't received any links to download the app. The app, which app are you talking about, Jen? Let's integrate in account. You're talking about registering your students in the first website, first app. Okay, so I know who your person is. I will send you that information. If it turns out that, I mean, they should be. First is quite adamant. Every youth, barring, to use their example, no access to the internet, every student should be online. But it does happen, it really does, where students don't have access to the internet. And so we can handle it with paper in that case. So I will send that over to you personally, and I will ask them to also share that with the rest of the families. I see, I'll read your answer, Rick, because it doesn't show up in the recording, but the question was about friends and family. And Rick's answer, it depends on the facility, but there should be enough space for friends and family to attend. Confirm with your tournament director. The general philosophy of FIRST is that everyone is welcome. And so, yes, absolutely have people come over. Some events do get a little bit tight. We just want to make sure the students have room to get to their events on time. That's about it. More than qualifier is a categoric no. It's in one of the rules that you can only go to one, you only get one shot to qualify, in other words. Now, I will qualify that by saying that, I will qualify the qualifier comment to say that in some geographical areas, for example, where I was for 16 years, which was Alaska, some events are so small that in order to allow some teams to qualify, we needed other teams to come and just fill gaps so that we had like 8 teams at an event. But only one event that you attend will be for qualifying. It is possible, if you hear through the grapevine, well, we went to 2 qualifiers. One of the events that team went to was not a qualifying event for them. They went so that other teams could qualify in very, very limited geographical areas. So I just want to qualify with that. Is there a pizza lunch? No, lunch is not provided by the event. You are responsible for doing that. If you want pizza, you'll have to order it. You can have it delivered if you so wish. You can have someone go out and pick it up. That's up to you. Let me see here. Have I missed the facility? The first app, I will take care of that. More than one qualifier. And I'll say also qualifier, there's scrimmages that are going on. Scrimmages are for fun. We just had one this past Saturday, which was wonderful. There's 2 going on this Saturday. There's one at Chandler High School, and there's one at the what is it called? Sci-Fi City of Surprise Sci-Tech Festival. I think that's what it's called. It's a scrimmage there. You can just show up with your robot and run it. And Rich, what are your times this weekend?
I'm going to be at, let's see, at the one in Surprise from 10 to 12. And then I'm going to be at Chandler from 1 to 3.
To 3. And Sarah just reminded me, because I sent out the email, so I should know this, Sarah. Sarah's having one down south at the library at Sierra Vista. And super wonderful that there's an event down there. Maybe I'll send out a reminder a little bit later. So we had 3 events this weekend. Hand up from Katie. Go ahead, Katie.
Is there like a list of like a checklist of a checklist of these are the things you should bring with you that day, or a good idea of things to bring with you that day?
Do you send out a packing list, Rick? I have one from the old days.
Um, I'm gonna call it a concrete, probably not as much as yours, but I've tried to send some things out of what to expect and what to bring with you.
So let me
Oh.
do this.
But maybe we can improve that this year.
Okay. I have one. I'll need to take a look at it because I haven't looked at it in a long time. I was looking to see there's an event on there's a file in the resource library that talks about how to get ready for an event, but I don't see what to bring. Okay, I've got it. While we're on this topic, Nancy, do you want the team information sheet to go out? And if so, optional or?
Yeah, it would be nice to send it out as optional.
Okay, because if I'm going to send out a packing list, I might as well send out the team info sheet because someone asked me for it this week, thought that was wonderful, and they want to use it. So if
Absolutely.
I'm sending that out to coaches, I might as well add that. Okay, let me see if there's something else in chat. FYI for Rich, Chandler scrimmage scheduled to wrap up at 2. I talked to him today. He said if people want to stay past 2, they're welcome to do so, but it is scheduled as Jennifer's saying it is scheduled to end at 2. How many teams go to state? I don't know. Francisco and I were doing some math today. We have 203 teams registered for qualifiers. We have 266 signed up that have paid the registration. If we do Tempe, we're going to squeeze 60 teams in there. We are on pins and needles next week to find out if possibly we can have it on the West Valley campus. If we have it in the West Valley campus, I'm then going to go to step 2, which is I'm inviting Rich, Nancy, Rick, and Jeremy, who's our audiovisual guy, to do a walkthrough of West to see if we like that as a possibility for the state tournament. If we like it, we can go past 60. But if we stay in Tempe, we cannot go past 60. There's just no room. There's just no room. But at West, if we can get it, and here's the reason why I can't give you a definite answer, is that I need 20, 22, maybe even 24 judging rooms. They're all going to be classrooms. We've picked them all out, but they cannot guarantee them until next week. If we can get those rooms, the big ballroom is bigger, so we could do more teams, but minimum 60. And by the rules, a one-day FLL event cannot be more than 84 teams. So it'll be somewhere in the 60 to 84 range. Okay. Okay. And I'll add one thing to that is that the number of teams that advance from a qualifier is not equal to the teams that get a trophy. It can vary. So a team can get a trophy and not advance. A team can be in a situation where they do not get a trophy and they do advance. That one's a little bit more rare, but it does happen. It's not a one-to-one thing. In the old days, it used to be. It's proportional. So when we get close and we get all the teams signed up and we get, say, 250 teams are signed up and there's 30 teams that go to this event, but 10 that go to this event, well, the 30-team event will get 3 times as many advancements as the one with the 10 teams. Everything's proportional. That's how we do it. So I usually tell the tournament director and the judge advisor, like the day before, how many teams are advancing because the numbers keep moving. Okay, Sarah, you had a question or someone else?
You answered it through that.
Okay.
So I was just waiting for you to finish.
Okay, that's good. Now, in my email, I had a couple of other questions that people have been asking. What should we bring? I'll get you a packing list, but certainly basics, right? Your robot posters, chargers, that kind of thing. Is lunch included? No. When we will get a schedule? General schedule, you should get about 3 weeks before your event. Specific schedule of when your sessions are the day before, sometimes the morning of, because the teams are bouncing around. What happens in a judging session? We covered that. Friends, family allowed, yes. Can we record a common question? Can we record the judging session, and how many people are allowed in the judging room? Nancy has very strict rules on who's allowed in her rooms. Generally two, right? Nancy, is kind of where you like it. The way I like to look at it is each event will have different size judging rooms, and whatever the smallest room is going to be our guide. So if you can get the kids in there and, you know, 2 people, and that's tight, that's as many people that'll be allowed, even if you have, you know, a whole classroom, to keep it fair for everyone at the event, right? It's unfair if somebody who gets the big room for judging is allowed to have 7 people in there where everybody else can't possibly fit 7 people. So we try to keep it fair. And it may vary from event to event, but it'll be consistent for everybody at that event. Okay. What are we qualifying for? Is the state tournament? What if your innovation project is incomplete? I'll go one step further and tell you the first year we competed back in 2008, we did not have a project at all. And we still went to a qualifier. And in those days, it was separate judging. And we went to a project judging session and went, hi, we don't have a project. And the judges were lovely and just talked to the kids about what could you have done? Did you have ideas? It was just absolutely wonderful. If you don't have a project, still come. Obviously, if you don't have a project, you aren't sort of meeting the requirements if you don't have one at all. So bring something. If the kids are talking about anything, about ideas they're throwing around, about problems to do with the oceans, bring it, right? We can work with that. The judges will do a good job working with the kids on that. We talked about the robot not moving. Okay, the $100 fee goes towards feeding the volunteers. Sometimes we have to pay for a building. Sometimes we have to pay for custodial staff. And then it also goes to help with the state tournament, which right now we aren't charging for state for the teams that are qualifying for that. If we get West, I can keep it to 0. If we go to Tempe, I may have to charge a little bit this year because Tempe is expensive. Do both lead coaches need to attend? No, do not. Teams are not, if an adult cannot show up, the teams are not penalized for that. We do need one adult. We do need one vetted, registered coach to be there, but you don't need both. And what if some team members cannot attend? That's okay too. Happens all the time. You just have to adjust your presentation. You have to adjust how you run the robot. But that's okay. We even had one kiddo 2 years ago. None of his team members showed up. He was alone. Brad Sanders was there that day, Rich, and he walked away with a judge's trophy because he was just so magnificently brave. We gave him a trophy. He was so great. So if all the team members can't be there, that's okay. Bring whoever can be there. All right. Does that answer your questions? Does that give you an idea what to expect? Do any of the experts want to add anything that I may have missed?
No, the only thing I'll mention, when the teams come into the room for their judging session, please remind them to bring their robot. We've had teams forget to bring their robot, especially when they're rookie teams. Bring your robot. We want to see the robot and we want to see the attachments.
And another key there, when bringing your robot, I highly recommend having a case or a box or something that they can carry their robot in, because once again, I have seen a robot go
We did.
all over the place and tears flow.
Yeah, that's when during that coaches meeting, I remind the coaches to remind the students you're going to be excited today, but the walk around. You don't want to run into another team or somebody else. Because like Rich said, robots are fragile and fall apart easily, and we don't want to see that. So maybe practice with your teams moving the robot, because you will have your pit area. Sometimes it's in the same space as the main competition. Other times it might be in a classroom. You have to go through hallways. Definitely the judging area will be probably a little farther away. So know that you will be moving what you're bringing with you to either the robot competition or your judging area.
Okay. Hope that was helpful.
There
We-
was one more question. Can you bring your own mat and a few missions to set up on the floor out of the way? That, I would say again, is another location by location. It just depends on the space. At my tournaments, I have said I may have gone both ways. Usually, I'll say if you can set it up in a area that's not like blocking an emergency exit or causing a like walkway hazard, I'm fine with that. But if it's a small area, I would not.
Yeah. We don't allow it at
allow it.
state anymore. I will say that.
Yeah,
It's too tight at state.
because
We
it's
can't
just
do
too
it.
tight.
Yeah. So we don't allow it at state. So if you're unsure, bring your mat, bring your mission models, and you can ask at the event, pick out a spot where maybe you can set it up and be as Rick says, right? Make sure that it's a safe spot. And then if you get told no, well, nothing lost. You will have access to practice tables there. Good. All right, you guys, I've got sort of a simple action item I'm walking away from, which is going to be to send two coaches the packing list and the team info, the latest team info sheet, which is optional that you can bring with you to give to the judges. And that's about it. So, and again, if you have posters, sometimes teams will make little pamphlets. If you filled out your engineering notebooks, that kind of thing, bring it to the event, bring it into judging. You can't leave it with the judges, but bring it, show it to us. Tell us what you did with it. You're perfectly fine doing that kind of thing. Okay. Signs that say good luck, flags. I've seen it all. Seen it all. Bring it. Anything that you can think of to liven up the space, go for it. All right. On that note,
Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, for doing this. We appreciate it.
Very, very
Fun.
welcome. I'm going to